Hello children, welcome to our teaching class video of the history. So I'm Mrs. Neha Bhargavi going to teach you the history 8th standard chapter number 10. Okay, Department of the Social Science. So let's go to the topic, that is today we are going to see about the chapter number 10, that is the colonialism and the urban change, and part 1 of this chapter. Okay, so let's go to the topic. So before go to the topic, what are the learning objectives? We are going to learn from this chapter, children, that is the define a de-urbanization and explain the emergence of the new towns, analyze the implications of the colonial policies and the institutions and the municipalities, public works, planning, and the railway links, and outline the nature of the urban development in India in the 19th and the 20th century. So let's start the topic. Let's say about the first topic is the de-urbanization of India. What is the de-urbanization? So we read in chapter number 5 that before the arrival of the British, there were the several prosperous towns and the cities in India that were flourishing centers of trade and the industry. And some of these prominent urban centers were the Surat, Masulipattnam, Dhaka, and the Murshidabad. Okay, and British and their economic policies saw the destruction of the indigenous crafts and the industries, thus in turn led the artisans to move back to the villages, and a consequent decline of these traditional urban centers. So this caused the de-urbanization. Okay, so urban development under the British. So Indian cities under the British were designed in such a way that there were separate zones marked for the British and the Indians. So the white town was for the British and the other Europeans, and the black town for the Indians. So the white town later came to be called as a civil line. So in the British period, they have marked like this. These areas are marked as a white town, and these areas are marked as a black towns. So they are separated, our Indian cities. So the marked white towns are under the British control, and the black towns are under the Indians. So while many of the older urban centers declined, the administrative and the economic policies of the British gave rise to the new towns and the cities. Let us look at some of these are the presidencies. So let's say about the first one is the presidencies. The administrative divisions of India under the British were known as the presidencies. The three main presidencies, Bengal, Madras, and the Bombay. Okay, so were governed directly by the English East India Company and later by the Queen of England, center of administration that grew into the prosperous cities under the British. And this is the pictures, like the Calcutta, Madras, and the Bombay were the three or the more important presidency towns. They had distinctive architectural features such as the forts, warehouses, government buildings, schools, public libraries, recreation centers, and the markets and the clock towers. See, this is a clock towers of the example images, like the in the Bombay University. So like in our Chennai now, now in Chennai also, the central railway station, that building also looking like this clock tower. Okay, that's also a clock tower built by in the British period. So this is a general view of the colonial Bombay Mumbai in 1880s. And they were well connected through the ports, roads, railways to the rest of the country, and cantonments and the civil lines. The cantonments were the military settlements where the British military officers lived with their families and the servants. They were self-sufficient units with schools, parks, public offices, and the hospitals. Bengaluru and Pune are the examples of the cantonments set up during the British period. And the senior British officers and the civil servants lived in the residential areas called the civil lines. It was set apart from the rest of the city where the Indians lived. There were civil lines in Delhi, Allahabad, Faisalabad, and the Moradabad. So these areas had broad roads and avenues, parks, school, hospitals, and the cemeteries, along with the other developed civic amenities. So next, we see about the hill stations. Unable to bear the heat of the Indian summers, the British would travel to the cooler hills each summer leading to the growth of the picturesque hill stations like the Shimla, Darjeeling, Nainital, Dehradun, and the Ooty. So the Shimla became the summer capital of the British Empire, and the hill stations had the beautiful colonial style bungalows, clubhouses, golf courses, churches, and a main central avenue with a variety of the shops that came to be called the mall. So that's all. Let's recap what are the topics we covered in this chapter, children. That is the de-urbanization of India and the urban development under the British. So these are all the topics covered in this chapter, children. Hope you all understand well. Thank you. Thank you all.